The Kalthar Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their empire stretched across 40% of known space, controlling hundreds of worlds and thousands of species. They were powerful, ancient, and absolutely certain of their superiority. 50 years ago, humanity had made first contact with them. Earth's first starship, the Endeavour, had crossed into Kalthar space after humanity finally cracked faster than light travel. The human crew came with open hands and hopeful hearts, carrying messages of peace and friendship. The Kalthar diplomatic corps had laughed at them. Ambassador David Chen remembered that first meeting like it was yesterday. He stood in the grand hall of the Kalthar station, surrounded by aliens who towered over him. Their skin was dark purple, their eyes like black glass, and their attitude was colder than deep space. Class 7 primitives, the Kalthar official had said, barely looking at Chen. You have nothing we need. You offer nothing we want. Stay in your small corner of the galaxy and do not waste our time again. But humanity didn't give up. They established colonies, built trade stations, and tried again and again to open dialogue. Chen spent decades traveling between Earth and Kalthar space, filing diplomatic requests that went unanswered. Every message was ignored. Every offer was dismissed. On the border between human and Kalthar space, humanity built New Horizon. It was a beautiful colony on a green world with clear oceans and vast forests. 2 million people called it home. They were farmers, scientists, teachers, and families who wanted a new start among the stars. Chen made sure the Kalthar knew about New Horizon. He filed the proper documents. He marked it clearly on all star maps. He even sent a formal declaration that read, New Horizon is protected under the Terran Accord. Any military incursion will be met with proportional defense. The Kalthar ignored that too. Admiral Sarah Volkov watched the situation from Earth with growing concern. She commanded the Terran Defense Fleet, a collection of ships that most people thought was small and outdated. Volkov was a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 30 years in Earth's military, fighting in the last war before humanity reached the stars. They're expanding toward us again, her intelligence officer reported one morning. 3 more systems in the last month. All of them were in the neutral zone we agreed on. We never agreed on anything, Volkov said bitterly. They took what they wanted and expected us to accept it. She pulled up a star map on her display. Red markers showed Kalthar military positions creeping closer and closer to human space. They were claiming resource-rich systems that human survey ships had already explored, systems that humanity needed for future growth. Send another formal protest through Ambassador Chen, Volkov ordered. Admiral, we've sent 47 protests in the last 2 years. They haven't responded to a single one. Volkov's jaw tightened. Send it anyway. We need to document everything. In the Kalthar capital, High Archon Zethral sat on his throne and reviewed reports of the Empire's expansion. He was ancient even by Kalthar standards, having ruled for 200 years. His advisors stood before him waiting for orders. The humans have sent another protest, one advisor said nervously. Zethral waved a dismissive hand. Humans, they are insects. Annoying but harmless. Continue the expansion as planned. High Archon, their colony at New Horizon lies directly in the path of our next phase. Then they will move, or they will be moved. The advisor hesitated. They have claimed it is protected territory. Zethral laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Protected by what? Their 12 tiny ships. I have fleets that could darken their sun. They will learn their place or they will learn nothing at all. The order went out within the hour. A Kalthar battle fleet of 200 warships would proceed to New Horizon. The humans would be given 1 day to evacuate, then the planet would be claimed for the Dominion. When Chen received the message, he felt his blood run cold. He immediately contacted Earth, and within minutes he was on a secure channel with Volkov. They're not bluffing this time, Chen said. The fleet is already moving. They'll reach New Horizon in 72 hours. Volkov studied the tactical data. 200 ships. Against that kind of force, even a full evacuation might not be possible. Start the evacuation now, Volkov ordered. Every ship we have, civilian and military. Get our people out. And then what? Chen asked. Then we do what we promised. We defend our territory. Chen closed his eyes. Sarah, 12 ships against 200. That's not defense. That's suicide. Trust me, David, and send one more message to the Kalthar. Make it very clear. Chen drafted the final warning personally. He chose each word carefully, knowing this might be humanity's last chance to avoid war. The message was simple and direct. To the Calthar Dominion. You are entering protected Terran territory with military intent. This is a violation of our sovereign space. We have attempted peaceful dialogue for 50 years. We have filed proper claims and warnings. We do not want war, but we will not be trampled. This is your final opportunity to withdraw. Turn back now or face the consequences. You have been warned. He sent it through every channel, broadcasting it across the entire sector so that other civilizations would see it too, so that history would record that humanity tried everything before fighting back. The Calthar fleet commander Vrethkal received the message and shared it with his officers. They laughed together at the humans' boldness. They warn us, Vrethkal said with amusement. These primitives who have barely left their home system warn the Calthar Dominion. This will be entertaining. As the fleet crossed into the New Horizon system, every sensor locked onto the 12 human ships waiting for them. Small vessels, ungainly in design, powered by what looked like primitive fusion drives. Vrethkal opened a channel. Human vessels, you are ordered to leave immediately. This system now belongs to the Dominion. You have 1 hour to comply. Admiral Volkov's voice came back calm and cold. You are making a grave mistake. We do not want war, but we will not be trampled. Vrethkal smiled. Then you will be destroyed. It is your choice. The hour passed in silence. The human ships did not move. The Calthar fleet advanced, weapons charging, and in that moment everything changed. The evacuation of New Horizon was a miracle of coordination. Within 72 hours, humanity moved 1,900,000 people off the planet. Every transport ship, every cargo hauler, every vessel that could break atmosphere was pressed into service. Families left their homes with whatever they could carry, watching their new world disappear behind them. Admiral Volkov had planned the evacuation down to the minute. She knew the Calthar would come, and she knew most people thought the Terran defense fleet couldn't stop them. But Volkov had secrets. Secrets that Earth had kept hidden for 50 years. The 12 ships that remained in orbit around New Horizon looked old. Their hulls were marked with patches and repairs. Their design seemed basic compared to the sleek Calthar warships. Scouts from the approaching fleet sent back reports filled with mockery. They are scrap metal, one scout reported, barely holding together. This will not be a battle. It will be target practice. High Archon Zethral watched from his throne room light years away. He had ordered the engagement broadcast across the Dominion's communication network. The entire Empire would watch humanity learn its lesson. Let all the galaxy see what happens to those who defy us, Zethral announced. Let these humans be an example. Commander Vrethkal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory. Around him in space, 200 Calthar warships formed a battle formation that had crushed resistance for centuries. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons, missile batteries, and shields that could withstand tremendous punishment. The human ships just floated there, waiting. Give them one last chance, Vrethkal said, more for the cameras than from any sense of mercy. Surrender now and you will be permitted to live as subjects of the Dominion. Admiral Volkov sat in her command chair aboard the TSFS Defiant. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly, their faces focused. They had trained for this moment for years. They knew what the 12 ships could really do. All ships, this is Volkov. Weapons free. Show them who we are. The Calthar fleet opened fire first. A wall of plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space toward the human vessels. The attack was overwhelming, designed to obliterate the small human force in seconds. But the human ships moved. They accelerated faster than should have been possible. Their primitive fusion drives revealing power outputs that made Calthar sensors scream warnings. Point defense systems came online and every missile was intercepted. Every plasma bolt met with precisely aimed counterfire that dissipated the energy. Vrethkal stared in shock. What? How? The human ships returned fire. Railgun rounds traveling at a significant fraction of light speed punched through Calthar shields like they weren't there. The rounds were small, dense, and moving so fast that when they hit, entire ships exploded from the kinetic energy alone. 3 Calthar warships vanished in the first volley, their destruction so quick that their crews never even had time to scream. Evasive action, Vrethkal shouted. All ships scatter and engage. But the Calthar fleet couldn't scatter fast enough. The human ships had split up, each one coordinating with the others through quantum-encrypted channels that the Calthar couldn't intercept or jam. They moved like a pack of predators, isolating groups of enemy ships and destroying them with ruthless efficiency. The TSFS Defiant targeted the Eternal Victory. Volkov watched her tactical display as firing solutions locked into place. "Fire," she said quietly. 6 railgun rounds hit Vrethkal's flagship in rapid succession. The shields failed on the 3rd impact. The 4th and 5th tore through the armor. The 6th penetrated to the ship's reactor. Vrethkal had just enough time to realize he had made a terrible mistake before his ship exploded in a ball of plasma. Across the battlefield, Cathar ships died. They tried to fight back, but their targeting systems couldn't track the human vessels. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the human shields, which used technology based on magnetic fields and layered energy matrices that the Cathar had never seen before. One Cathar captain managed to get a message out before his ship was destroyed. "They're not primitives, pull back." Polkem, the transmission ended in static. The Battle of New Horizon lasted 32 minutes. When it was over, 200 Cathar warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The 12 human ships remained untouched, floating among the wreckage like sharks circling the remains of their prey. Across the galaxy, those who had been watching sat in stunned silence. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Humanity had drawn a line and defended it. But in the military command centers, the mood was somber. Everyone knew this was just the beginning. High Archon Zethral watched the reports come in, his face darkening with rage. His advisors cowered before him as he threw furniture and roared his fury. "Impossible. They are primitives. This must be a trick, some deception." "High Archon," one brave advisor said, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Perhaps we should negotiate." Zethral grabbed the advisor by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Negotiate? With insects, never. This was a fluke. They used cowardly tactics and caught us by surprise. We will crush them with overwhelming force." He threw the advisor aside and turned to his military commanders. "Mobilize the Grand Armada. Every ship, every weapon. I want 2,000 vessels ready to march on human space. We will burn their worlds to ash. We will make them extinct, and every species in the galaxy will remember what happens to those who challenge the Dominion." The commanders saluted and rushed to carry out his orders. Within hours, the largest military force assembled in 500 years began moving toward human space. Ambassador Chen tried one more time to reach the Cathar through diplomatic channels. He sent messages offering peace, offering compromise, offering anything to stop what was coming. Every message was ignored or rejected. Finally, Chen sat down and recorded a statement. It would be broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. Every species would hear it. Every world would see it. "People of the galaxy," Chen began, his voice heavy with sadness. 50 years ago, humanity reached for the stars with hope in our hearts. We came in peace. We offered friendship. We sought only to join the community of spacefaring civilizations as equals. The Cathar Dominion rejected us. They dismissed us. They ignored every attempt at dialogue. When they came for our people with weapons, we defended ourselves. We gave them every chance to turn back. They chose war. Now, as they mobilize their full might against us, we make this final statement. We did not want this. We tried everything to avoid it. But we will not be slaves. We will not be victims. We will not disappear quietly into the night. To the Cathar Dominion, you have been warned. You saw what 12 of our ships can do. You still have time to choose peace. But if you come for us with your armada, you will face the full might of Earth, and you will learn that humanity's patience has limits. You will face the consequences you were warned about. You will face Earthborn vengeance. The message spread like fire across the galaxy. Some species thought humanity was brave. Others thought they were suicidal. The Cathar thought they were fools. The Cathar Grand Armada was a sight that struck fear across the galaxy. 2,000 warships, each one massive and powerful, gathered in formation above the Dominion's military staging world. They would sweep through human space like a tidal wave, unstoppable and overwhelming, or so they thought. What the Cathar didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since first contact. When the Dominion dismissed Earth's diplomats and ignored their warnings, human leaders made a decision. They would prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. For 50 years, in secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and deep space, humanity built an armada. Not 12 ships, 800 ships, each one incorporating lessons learned from thousands of years of human warfare. each one designed by engineers who understood that humanity's survival might depend on their work. Admiral Volkov stood in the operations center deep beneath Earth's surface. Around her, dozens of tactical displays showed the positions of both fleets. The Cathar were advancing in their traditional formation, confident and proud. They had no idea what was waiting for them. All fleet groups, this is Volkov. Execute Operation Hammer. Across human space, at a dozen different locations, the hidden shipyards opened. The Terran warfleet emerged from concealment, their sleek forms reflecting starlight. These were not the patched-together vessels the Cathar expected. These were weapons of war built by a species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times and learned hard lessons from each conflict. The first Cathar fleet group to encounter them was Battle Group Hammer. 300 ships strong, they were advancing on the human colony of New Terra when space itself seemed to ripple. 40 human ships appeared from stealth, their advanced cloaking fields dropping away. Before the Cathar could react, the humans launched their attack. Drone swarms poured from the human ships, thousands of small autonomous weapons that moved with purpose and intelligence. They targeted sensor arrays, communication systems, and weapons points. The Cathar ships, built for massive ship-to-ship combat, had no defense against enemies too small and too numerous to target effectively. While the drones stripped away the Cathar's ability to fight, the human warships fired their main weapons, not just railguns this time, but particle beams that cut through armor like a knife through paper, missiles that didn't just explode but released submunitions that sought out specific targets, and cyber weapons that infected Cathar computer systems, turning the aliens' own technology against them. Within an hour, Battle Group Hammer was destroyed. The survivors sent panicked messages back to the main fleet, but many of those messages never arrived. Human electronic warfare specialists had infiltrated the Cathar communication networks, causing confusion and spreading false information. High Archon Zethral received conflicting reports. Some said the humans had 1,000 ships. Others said they had weapons that bent the laws of physics. The truth was somewhere in between, but the Dominion's chain of command was breaking down under the information warfare assault. "Send Battle Group Talon to reinforce," Zethral commanded. "Send Battle Group Wrath. Send them all." But Admiral Volkov was not fighting a traditional war. She had no interest in glorious ship-to-ship battles. She studied the Cathar supply lines, their logistics, their military infrastructure, and she struck at all of it simultaneously. The siege of Calth Prime's moon became legendary. The moon housed the Dominion's largest military academy, where officers trained for decades before taking command. Human Marines equipped with powered armor and weapons that could punch through walls, dropped from orbit in stealth pods. The assault was broadcast live across the galaxy, not by the Cathar, but by humanity. They wanted everyone to see what happened to aggressors. The Marines moved through the academy with precision, disabling defenses and capturing instructors. Within 6 hours, the facility was under human control, and every document, every tactical plan, every secret the Cathar military had was in human hands. But the most terrifying moment came when the Fifth Fleet vanished. The Fifth Fleet was 400 ships, considered one of the Dominion's elite forces. They were moving through deep space to attack the human industrial world of Forge Prime when they simply disappeared from all sensors. Search parties found them 3 weeks later. All 400 ships were destroyed, spread across 1,000 cubic kilometers of space. But there was no sign of battle, no energy signatures, no indication of what had killed them. The truth was that human ships had targeted them from so far away that the Cathar never even detected the attack. Railgun rounds traveling at relativistic speeds, fired from extreme range, had hit the fleet before they knew anything was wrong. The rounds had traveled for hours through empty space, guided by targeting computers that could calculate trajectories across vast distances. The Cathar learned to fear empty space itself. Anywhere could hide a human ship. Anywhere could be the origin point for an attack they'd never see coming. Admiral Volkov addressed her fleet commanders in a secure conference. "We're not occupying their worlds. We're not conquering their territory. We're destroying their ability to make war. Every military base, every shipyard, every logistics hub. We hit them all, and we don't stop until they can't threaten anyone ever again." A young captain asked, "Admiral, many of them are trying to surrender. Individual ships are broadcasting white flags." Volkov's expression was hard. Any ship that surrenders is allowed to go home. But make it clear to them. Tell their leaders what they saw. Tell them what we can do. Tell them that we warned them and they didn't listen. The war that was supposed to last years lasted 6 months. The Kalthar Empire's military might was systematically dismantled. Their fleets were destroyed. Their bases were reduced to rubble. Their supply lines were cut. And still, High Archon Zethral refused to surrender. In his throne room, surrounded by the few advisors who hadn't fled, Zethral made a decision that would doom his empire. If he could not win, he would make the humans pay a price they could never forget. Deploy the Crimson Plague, he ordered. His advisors gasped. The Crimson Plague was a biological weapon so terrible that the Kalthar themselves had banned its use 300 years ago. It was a genetically engineered virus that attacked all carbon-based life, causing a slow and agonizing death. High Archon, the Galactic Council forbids. I am the Council, Zethral roared. Deploy it on the human colony of Haven. Let them watch their people die. Let them know the cost of defying me. The weapon was deployed in secret, released into Haven's atmosphere by a stealth ship that escaped before anyone knew it was there. The virus spread quickly. Within a week, 50,000 humans were dead, their bodies covered in crimson marks as the plague destroyed them from the inside. When Admiral Volkov received the news, she was in a meeting with her staff. An aide handed her a message pad, and as she read it, the color drained from her face. Biological weapon, she said quietly. He used a biological weapon on civilians. The room fell silent. Volkov stood up slowly. Get me the president. Get me the Joint Chiefs, and activate the Endgame Protocol. Her officers looked at each other nervously. The Endgame Protocol was humanity's last resort, a plan for total war that assumed Earth itself might be destroyed. It contained weapons and strategies that humanity hoped never to use. Weapons that could crack planets. Strategies that could destroy entire civilizations. Admiral, her XO said carefully, the Endgame Protocol means, I know what it means. Volkov interrupted, but he crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. He killed our civilians with a biological weapon. If we let that stand, every species in the galaxy will think they can do the same. The gloves come off now. The news of the Crimson Plague spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. 50,000 human civilians dead from a biological weapon that the Kalthar Empire had promised never to use again. The other civilizations watched nervously, wondering how humanity would respond. They didn't have to wait long. Admiral Volkov assembled the Terran First Strike Group, the most elite and deadly force in humanity's military. 50 ships, each one crewed by volunteers who understood this might be a one-way mission. Their target was not a military base or a supply depot. Their target was Kalth Prime itself, the homeworld of the Dominion. High Archon Zethral sat on his throne, trying to project confidence to his remaining advisors. Most of his government had fled or gone into hiding. His military commanders sent desperate messages begging for orders that made sense. His empire was falling apart around him. The humans would never dare attack the homeworld, Zethral insisted. They are too weak, too sentimental. They will negotiate now. They will beg for peace. His chief advisor, one of the few who remained, spoke carefully. High Archon, they have destroyed 70% of our military. Their technology is beyond anything we imagined. Perhaps we should consider never. Zethral slammed his fist on the throne. I would rather see the Empire burn than submit to primitives. At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. The advisor's communication device buzzed urgently. His face went pale as he read the message. High Archon, the humans. They're here. The Terran First Strike Group had jumped directly into orbit around Kalth Prime. It was a move so bold, so reckless, that it should have been impossible. The planet's defense network should have detected them coming. The orbital defense platforms should have blown them out of space. But Admiral Volkov had brought cyber warfare specialists who had spent months infiltrating every system in the Kalthar network. When the human ships arrived, they didn't come in blind. They came with every code, every password, every backdoor already in their possession. The orbital defense platforms turned on each other, their targeting systems compromised. Communications satellites went dark. The military headquarters on the surface found their computers locked, displaying a simple message in perfect Kalthar script: stand down or be destroyed. Volkov broadcast on all frequencies. ensuring every person on Calth Prime could hear her words. People of Calth Prime, this is Admiral Sarah Volkov of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your leader deployed a biological weapon against our civilians. He murdered 50,000 innocent people with a weapon your own people banned centuries ago. We could destroy your world. We could kill billions in retaliation. But we are not like your leader. We are not murderers. We are here for justice, not genocide. On the surface, millions of Calthar watched the sky as the human ships moved into position. They expected death from above. They expected their cities to burn. Instead, the human ships began systematically disabling military targets with surgical precision. Railgun rounds destroyed weapons factories, but the surrounding civilian areas were untouched. Particle beams cut power to military bases, but hospitals and homes kept running. Missiles struck government buildings associated with the military command, but residential areas were avoided. It was a demonstration of total control. The humans could have killed everyone, but they chose not to. They were showing mercy, while simultaneously proving they had the power to do anything they wanted. High Archon Zethral watched from his palace as his world was conquered without a single civilian death. He watched as human special operations teams landed throughout the capital city. They moved like ghosts, their armor making them nearly invisible. They avoided firefights with local police and instead targeted government buildings. Within 4 hours, human soldiers breached the throne room. Zethral stood, trying to maintain his dignity. "You dare—" "High Archon Zethral," the team leader interrupted, her voice calm through her helmet speaker. "You are under arrest for war crimes, including the use of banned biological weapons against civilian populations. You will stand trial before the galactic community. I am the ruler of the Calthar Dominion. I answer to no one. The Calthar Dominion no longer exists," the soldier replied. "Your empire is dissolved as of this moment." Zethral was taken into custody along with his entire war council. Not a single shot was fired in the throne room. The humans simply walked in, took control, and walked out with their prisoners. Admiral Volkov addressed the galaxy once more, broadcasting from orbit above Calth Prime. "The Calthar Dominion's reign of terror is over. We did not come here seeking conquest or revenge. We came seeking justice. High Archon Zethral and his war council will stand trial for their crimes. The people of Calth Prime are not our enemies. The conquered species of the Dominion are not our enemies. We offer you all freedom and the chance to build a better future." She paused, letting her words sink in. "To any other power considering aggression against humanity or any other species, we are peaceful, but we are not weak. We are patient, but our patience has limits. We gave the Calthar every opportunity to choose peace. They chose war. You have seen the result. Choose wisely." The reaction across the galaxy was immediate. The 3 other major powers, the Veltar Consensus, the Giron Federation, and the Cordova Alliance, all sent urgent diplomatic messages to Earth. They wanted to meet. They wanted to talk. They wanted to make sure humanity knew they were friends, not threats. Species that had been oppressed by the Calthar for centuries celebrated in the streets. The Dominion had controlled them through fear and force, but now that force was broken. They were free. On Calth Prime itself, the population was in shock. They had been raised believing their empire was invincible, that their species was superior to all others. Now they watched as human ships controlled their sky, and human soldiers maintained order in their streets. But the humans didn't act like conquerors. They provided medical aid. They delivered food to areas where supply lines had been disrupted. They even helped repair infrastructure damaged in the fighting. It was confusing to the Calthar. These were supposed to be primitives, barely worthy of notice. How had they become the most powerful military force in the galaxy? The answer was simple, though many struggled to accept it. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting itself. Every major nation on Earth had waged war, learned from defeat, and improved. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times with nuclear weapons, biological agents, and conventional warfare on a massive scale. They learned to be efficient at war because failure meant extinction. When humanity finally reached the stars, they brought all that knowledge with them. They had hoped never to use it. They had tried for 50 years to make peace. But when war came, they were ready. The trial of High Archon Zethral was held on a neutral station, observed by representatives from dozens of civilizations. The evidence was overwhelming. The Crimson Plague attack was documented, the orders traced directly to him. Other war crimes were revealed. Worlds bombed when they tried to leave the Dominion. Species driven to extinction when they resisted. Zethral showed no remorse. Even facing judgment, he remained arrogant. "I regret nothing," he said when given a chance to speak. "I ruled an empire that brought order to chaos. What I did for the glory of the Kalthar people." The judges, representing 12 different species, deliberated for less than an hour, guilty on all counts. Ambassador Chen attended the trial as Earth's representative. As he watched Zethral being led away to spend the rest of his life in confinement, he felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for all the death that could have been avoided. "Did we do the right thing?" a young aide asked him. Chen thought about it for a long moment. "We did the necessary thing. We gave them every chance to choose peace. They chose war. We responded with overwhelming force to end the war as quickly as possible. And now we're trying to build something better. That's all we can do." 20 years had passed since the fall of the Kalthar Dominion. The galaxy looked very different now, and humanity's role in it had changed in ways that Ambassador David Chen could never have imagined when he first stepped onto that Kalthar station so many years ago. Chen stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, a massive structure built in neutral space where the new Galactic Council met. Through the viewport, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. Kalthar vessels flying peacefully alongside human ones. Feltar traders doing business with former Dominion colonies. Species that had been enemies for centuries learning to coexist. "Hard to believe it's been 20 years, a voice said behind him. Chen turned to see Admiral Sarah Volkov. She was retired now, her hair fully white but her eyes still sharp. They had both been invited to speak at today's ceremony, marking the anniversary of the war's end. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," Chen replied. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago." "Both, I think," Volkov said, joining him at the window. "Do you ever regret how it happened?" Chen considered the question. "I regret that it happened at all. I regret every life lost. But I don't regret that we defended ourselves. We gave them every chance." Volkov nodded slowly. "I still see their faces sometimes. The ones who died on Haven from that plague. I wake up thinking about them. That wasn't your fault, Sarah, you know that." "I know, but knowing doesn't make it easier." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Two old warriors who had seen too much but carried on anyway. The galaxy had been transformed by what people now called the Dominion War. The Kalthar Empire had been dissolved, its territory reorganized into independent systems with human oversight during a transition period. That oversight had been necessary at first. Many former Dominion worlds didn't know how to govern themselves after centuries of authoritarian rule. But humanity hadn't wanted an empire. That had been clear from the start. As soon as each world could stand on its own, humans stepped back. Some systems chose to maintain close ties with Earth. Others went their own way. Humanity respected both choices. The species that had been oppressed by the Dominion were grateful, though some struggled with the idea that their liberators came from a species they'd been taught to dismiss as primitives. The truth had been humbling for many. Humanity wasn't special because they were inherently superior. They were effective because they had learned hard lessons and never forgot them. The Galactic Accords had been Chen's greatest achievement. After the war, he led the effort to create a new framework for interstellar relations. Rules of engagement, laws of war, protections for civilians, consequences for violations. Every spacefaring species had signed it, knowing that humanity would enforce it if necessary. "Do you think it will last?" Volkov asked. "The peace? Nothing lasts forever," Chen replied. "But we've given it the best foundation we could, and we've shown that aggression has consequences. That might not stop everyone, but it will make most think twice." Down in the main hall, the ceremony was beginning. Speakers from different worlds shared their perspectives on the war and what came after. A Kalthar historian spoke about how her people had learned humility. A Veltar diplomat talked about the new era of cooperation. A young human officer described growing up in a galaxy where humans were respected, not dismissed. But the most powerful moment came when a Kalthar student asked a question during the open forum. She couldn't have been more than 20 standard years old, born after the war ended. "I learned in school about the war," she said, her voice uncertain, "about what my people did, about High Archon Zethral and the plague and everything, but I don't understand. Why didn't you destroy us? You could have. You had the power. Why show mercy? Admiral Volkov stood to answer. The hall fell silent. Because that's not who we are, Volkov said simply. We could have destroyed Calth Prime. We could have wiped out your entire species in retaliation for what your leader did. But that would have made us exactly like him. We went to war to stop tyranny, not to become tyrants ourselves. She paused, looking around the hall at the assembled species. Humans learned a long time ago that power without restraint leads to disaster. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars. We know what happens when the strong crush the weak just because they can. When your leader ignored our warnings and attacked our people, we defended ourselves. When he escalated to biological weapons, we responded with overwhelming force. But we always remembered that the people of the Dominion weren't our enemies. Your leader was. His government was. His military was. Not you. The young Calthar student wiped tears from her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. After the ceremony, Chen and Volkov walked through the station together. They passed markets where species from across the galaxy traded freely. They saw children of different species playing together, too young to remember when their peoples were enemies. I'm proud of this, Chen said. Not the war, but what came after. We could have used our strength to dominate. Instead, we used it to build. The hardest victories are the ones where you have to stay your hand, Volkov agreed. Any fool can destroy. It takes wisdom to build. They reached the memorial garden, a quiet space on the station dedicated to everyone who died in the war. Human and Calthar names were listed side by side. Victims of the plague, soldiers from both fleets. Civilians caught in the conflict. The garden made no distinction between them. Death had claimed them all regardless of species. A monument stood at the center with an inscription in a dozen languages. Chen had written it himself. Here, at New Horizon, humanity drew a line. Here, an empire learned humility. Here, the galaxy learned that kindness is not weakness and patience has limits. May we never forget the cost of arrogance or the price of peace. Below that, a second inscription read, They were warned. Those 3 words had become famous across the galaxy. They were warned was now shorthand for the danger of underestimating peaceful species. It was a reminder that just because someone chooses not to fight, doesn't mean they can't fight. Volkov touched one of the names on the wall, a young Marine who had died during the assault on Calth Prime. She was 19, volunteered for the mission because she lost family on Haven. She wanted justice, not revenge. Did we give her justice? Chen asked. I think so. We stopped the people responsible. We made sure it could never happen again. We built something better. That's justice even if it doesn't bring anyone back. As the sun set over Unity Station, casting long shadows through the garden, Chen thought about the journey that had brought them here. 50 years of trying to make peace, months of devastating war, 20 years of rebuilding. Humanity had earned a unique place in the galaxy. They were respected as warriors but admired for their restraint. They were feared for their power but trusted because they used it wisely. Other species came to Earth for help mediating disputes, knowing that humans understood both the necessity of strength and the value of mercy. The Terran Defense Fleet remained powerful, perhaps the most advanced military force in known space. But it served as a deterrent more than anything else. Most conflicts were now resolved through the Galactic Council, where Chen still served as Earth's representative. Do you think we'll have to fight again someday? A young aide asked Chen during the journey back to Earth. Chen looked out at the stars, thinking about all the worlds out there. Some friendly, some neutral, some still unknown. Probably, he said honestly. The galaxy is a big place, and not everyone learns from history. But they'll learn from our history. They saw what happened to the Calthar. Most will choose to talk instead of fight. And if they don't, then we do what we've always done. We warn them. We give them every chance to back down. And if they still choose violence, we remind them why humanity is peaceful by choice, not necessity. The aide nodded, understanding. That was humanity's legacy now. Not conquerors or destroyers, but guardians who preferred peace but never forgot how to fight. As Chen's ship approached Earth, he could see the blue and green world that had spawned a species capable of both terrible violence and remarkable compassion. A species that had learned to balance both sides of its nature. The phrase Earthborn vengeance had entered the galactic vocabulary, but it meant something different than most expected. It wasn't about cruelty or destruction. It was about the response that came when patience ended, when kindness was mistaken for weakness, when warnings were ignored. It meant They were peaceful. They were patient. They were kind. And then they were done being ignored. On Calth Prime, in a classroom much like the one where the young student had asked her question, a teacher was explaining the war to his students. They were learning about High Archon Zethral's arrogance, about humanity's warnings about the devastating defeat that followed. One student raised their hand. "Teacher, why didn't the humans just destroy us? We attacked them. We used illegal weapons. Why show mercy?" The teacher, who had lived through the war, considered his answer carefully. "Because that is who they are," he said finally. "We thought ourselves superior. We ignored their warnings because we believed they were weak. We learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy. Kindness is not weakness and patience has limits. The humans showed us both their mercy and their might. Never forget which one they offered first, and never forget that we forced them to show the second." The class fell silent, absorbing the lesson. "Remember this always," the teacher continued. "When someone warns you, listen. When someone offers peace, accept it. Because you never know what they're capable of until it's too late. The humans tried for 50 years to be our friends. We could have had allies. Instead, we made them into enemies, and they taught us that the quietest species can be the most dangerous when you finally push them too far." In the decades that followed, that lesson spread. New civilizations joining the galactic community were told the story. The Kalthar Dominion served as a warning about the dangers of arrogance. Humanity served as an example of how to wield power responsibly. And somewhere, in quiet moments, Admiral Volkov and Ambassador Chen would meet and remember. Remember the warnings that were ignored. Remember the line that was crossed. Remember the price that was paid. And remember that sometimes, the greatest victory is knowing when to fight and when to stop.